Here's something that I was relatively certain we would never see again. Politics Insider says, following Obama's lead, George W. Bush is hitting the campaign trail ahead of the November midterms. George W. Bush on the campaign trail. That's so bad. Okay, they say former President George W. Bush will headline fundraising events for a handful of Republicans this week and next week ahead of the November midterm elections. Bush is set to boost House and Senate candidates running in Texas, North Dakota, and Florida. The 43rd president's latter appearance will be in support of Governor Rick Scott, who is running for a Senate seat in the Sunshine State. The moves follow those of former President Barack Obama, who began campaigning for Democrats and publicly rebuking President Donald Trump for the first time in earnest last week. Unlike Obama, who was holding full-scale campaign rallies for some party candidates, events featuring Bush will be invitation only. So there is a little bit of a difference here. Basically, the difference is George W. Bush will be making pitches to the 1%, whereas Barack Obama is still being used on the campaign trail in regular campaign events. Now, what's interesting is when you actually look at their approval ratings now, Obama's has always been high enough post-leaving office where he could be viewed as an asset. And even though I have many disagreements with Obama, the reality is what it is. And I think his approval rating is like 60% or something like that. So that's enough to be on the campaign trail and definitely be viewed as an asset. Now, Bush, for the longest time, I think when he left office, his approval rating was like in the 20s. It was abysmally low. And I think Dick Cheney's was in like the teens. So everybody realized, okay, unnecessary offensive wars, fucking torture, crashing the economy, deregulation, all that. So people were like, hate that guy. Well, fast forward, unfortunately, in this instance, time really does heal all wounds. And now Bush's approval rating, I don't think it's as high as Obama's, but it's above 50% now. It really shouldn't be. He's a fucking war criminal, man. He's a war criminal. But it does say something. So now, like I said, they're going to use him at these 1%er events. So the giant fundraising events for Republicans. Now, why is he definitely an asset in those instances? Because those people never really abandoned him. So for George W. Bush, that base of support that never left him, even when he was had like a 26% approval rating or whatever it was, that base of support that never left him, who do you think that was? The richest people in the country who are also Republicans. That's who they were. And maybe sprinkle in some evangelicals. That's who they were. So those people never really left him. And now it's years later anyway, so now they fucking love him. So he's an asset among, corporate donor circles, billionaire circles, far right-wing circles. So that's how he's being used. Now, that actually teaches an important lesson. If you think about it, there's nothing you can do to be excommunicated by the donor class. I mean, think of all the terrible things George Bush did. There's nothing he could have done to have been excommunicated by that 1% donor class. And then it struck me, there is one thing he could do to be excommunicated by them. If George W. Bush was Bernie Sanders, that's how he would be excommunicated by that donor class. So in other words, all the offensive wars, all the torture, Guantanamo Bay, all the deregulation, all the tax cuts for the rich, the tanking of the economy, the subprime mortgage crisis, the increase in income inequality, the increase in the poverty rate, all of that, declining wages, outsourcing jobs, the rich people didn't care. They supported him through it. How would they revolt? They would revolt if it was like Bernie Sanders and he actually lessened income inequality and he actually didn't get us into these stupid wars and he actually did Medicare for all and he did free college and he did a living wage and he cut into their profits. That's when they would care. And that tells you something else too. If/when, hopefully, Bernie Sanders becomes president, he will get so fucking obliterated by mainstream media that it will be hard to watch. We'll have to respond to them around the clock with all the shit that they're going to smear him with. Because think about the coverage from the mainstream media of Bush today. and it's relatively favorable with all the shit Bush did. So when Bernie actually goes to improve the lives of people, that's when they'll start arguing against him the strongest. So look out, man, because this story alone shows how fucked up the system is. That a guy like George W. Bush is campaigning among the 1% to try to get Republicans elected, and that's just viewed as like, yeah, whatever. No, he should be in prison. That's where he should be, and that's not really debatable when you look at all the crimes that his government committed and how terrible they were. So the system is totally broken, and this is a good example of it here.